And by the time I got into Paradise, it was into the town proper. It was the fastest moving fire that I've seen, yeah.
It looked like an atomic bomb has gone off.
Hey, come on. Watch out, watch out.
You just hear propane tanks exploding, and it sounded like you're under fire.
Not in my lifetime will those mountains ever look the same.
Oh my God.
This is the new fire, and we can't defend you from this.
We've always had extreme weather, but over the last 20 years, as climate change has accelerated, it has mutated and become more dangerous and unpredictable. From dry lightning to the polar vortex to bomb cyclones and the firenado. Welcome to the new reality. Welcome to mutant weather. As climate change heats up the Earth, massive wildfires are raging out of control. Why is it happening? And how bad is it going to get?
Many of the things that we projected to happen are happening at a much faster rate than even we projected 20 or 30 years ago. So we're seeing dramatic changes in our weather patterns.
Global temperature records are being shattered year after year, creating hotter and drier conditions, ideal for megafires. We are seeing massive infernos burning in places like Europe, North America, the Amazon, and even the Arctic Circle. Nowhere is safe.
The observational evidence, i.e. reality, what's happening in front of our eyes right now, are actually far worse than worst-case projections were quite a ways back.
We are really looking at the possibility of catastrophic shifts and changes in our Earth system and our weather.
Where we're starting to realize on a global scale that climate change is real, it's here to stay, and the extremes of weather that are currently happening with greater frequency, they're not going to go away.
This new extreme weather catches California off guard. In 2018, a merciless drought leads to California's worst fire season on record. Across the state, fires are breaking out, including one seemingly typical brush fire outside the town of Paradise.
My mom had called, she told me about the fire, and I'm like, it's on the other side of the canyon. I'm like, we're good, like, it's happened before, we'll be fine.
Anastasia Skinner lives in Paradise with her husband and 3 children. Their 4th is due in 1 month, and she's having a difficult pregnancy.
And then 2 of our neighbors called too, and they were like, oh, should we be worried?
Growing up in California, Anastasia is no stranger to fires. They're a natural occurrence and usually quickly controlled, but she's not prepared for what lies ahead.
I mean, things got obviously a lot worse the next day. You never saw that coming.
Mickey Huber is an EMS supervisor in Paradise and a former wildland firefighter.
It happened to be late in the season without any rain. The humidity levels were down. And I was driving and heard the radio chatter that there was a fire, but I didn't really think anything of it.
Fires really strike me, I think, at my core because of intensity of the change that they can promote on the landscape. They're just such a strong, almost symbol of climate change on the landscape.
And the trend is towards this ever-increasing amount of area burned. What that's symptomatic of is the climate has changed. We're not talking about climate is changing, which it is, but it already has changed. And so we're kind of dealing with the fallout of that.
Rising temperatures across the world are drying landscapes and fueling blazes. But northern countries feel it more as they warm at twice the global rate. May 2016. Northern Alberta, Canada. A wildfire is detected near Fort McMurray, a 7-hour drive north of Calgary. Wildland firefighters are dispatched on what seems like a routine call.
Good morning, Fort McMurray. Get ready for a warm one. We're looking at a high of 27 degrees this afternoon, and we've got an air quality advisory thanks to the fire just outside of town. Stay with us for traffic on the 7th.
My wife and I were out downtown picking up some supplies for the company, and you're watching the helicopters and the bombers work, and I just remarked to her, I said, this is coming into town. You know, we're not going to escape this one.
Hall Spring has been fighting fires for almost 40 years.
We're an emergency services company, and fire is part of the landscape here, but this was different.
Fort McMurray is gripped by an unusual springtime heat wave with temperatures 4 to 7 degrees Celsius hotter than normal. Prime conditions for a mutant inferno.
As things get warmer, that's going to create drier environments, which really help contribute to stimulating more fires within that environment.
By this time, towns like Paradise and the entire state of California are seeing below normal amounts of rainfall.
Once it gets warm and dry, then it really kicks up. And the environmental conditions really support fires on the landscape. That's when we see it flare up.
Desecrated forests are turbocharging the spread of fires outside of Paradise on the ominously named Campfire Road. But Anastasia Skinner isn't fazed by the fire.
We have fire departments, we have other personnel that, like, if just a house went up, they'd be able to stop it before it spread.
Mickey Huber previously worked as a wildland firefighter, and he doesn't like what he sees.
Saw the initial column of smoke, drove another 7 miles in that short distance. The column itself had tripled in size, and it was at that point that I called my cohort and told him I needed him to staff up all the ambulances that he could staff up and send them to the county.
What starts as a small brush fire quickly morphs into a monster, devouring the parched forest land, accelerated by 80-kilometer-an-hour gusts. And it now has a name, the campfire.
California has also been victim of weather, and California also has these occurrences of extreme wind. When you can see winds that are in excess of 100 kilometers an hour, all of a sudden, there is no potential way to suppress fire in that.
Fire rescue. We do have a major wildfire in the area.
You know, you've seen smoke before from wildland fires. There's smoke that's light colored, there's a little bit of yellow, some light brown. This was an angry orange. This was a weird color, and it was growing huge. And by the time I got into Paradise, it was into the town proper. It was the fastest moving fire that I've seen yet.
In town, Anastasia stops by her mom's place to collect her dogs, not yet realizing that it's chaos everywhere else.
I got there 5 minutes after I left my house, so 15, 20 minutes from leaving my house. I was already caught by the fire.
Residents are desperate to escape.
Fire was right in front of me. There's probably 15 cars in a small little area, and nobody could get turned around or anything. And I knew that I couldn't run. My mom called back, and I was like, I have your dogs, but there's no way I'm surviving this.
Earlier in 2018, a deadly phenomenon strikes just 85 miles from Paradise, the firenado, a destructive vortex of smoke, ash, and flame, towering 17,000 feet above the ground.
When you're looking at like how these fires start to drive, or fire whirls start to occur, oftentimes it happens in a low wind situation, right? So there's not a lot of wind pushing the fire forward. They naturally just want to grow like a circle. There's this updraft in the middle. And so the fire is actually leaning into itself. And as it does that, it just keeps generating more and more vertical intensity. And that gradient that it's generating between that and the unburned stuff that's not even being preheated starts to generate like a huge imbalance. And that's similar to the imbalance that starts tornadoes, right? And the indrafting that starts naturally happening starts punching little holes into the side of the fire and causing rotation. It's terrifying, and it's just absolutely beautiful in its own right. And when you start to see that level of extreme fire behavior, you get people out of the way, you keep an eye on it, and you just keep on evacuating ahead of it and just try and guess what to do. You fall back, you regroup, and you find out where you're going to make your stand.
In Fort McMurray, helicopter pilot Paul Spring realizes he's entering uncharted territory.
The thing that struck me the most was the flame heights. So flying around, you're in the blue sky and the sun, disconnected from the mayhem that's going on in town. Looking at the edge of the fire, we were seeing flame heights of, hundreds and hundreds of feet. These giant licks of flame coming up and jumping out of the smoke. So the activity on this fire was some of the most aggressive fire activity I've seen.
The fire is on the outskirts of Fort McMurray. Roads are choked with residents fleeing town, but some believe they have more time.
I went for a walk. Someone stopped me on the side of the road and just said, you should probably leave. There's a fire and some areas are getting evacuated.
Fire gets growing in size rapidly. Some fires just will not be put out by us. When a big fire gets going, there aren't enough water bombers in the world to put that thing out.
You think about fires, they have this birth moment where they are ignited and they will just slowly grow. And during that growth phase, there's like an acceleration side where they're just, everything's changing rapidly about them. And once they fully evolve and become, a grown-up fire, then they are basically unstoppable.
A similarity between the Camp Fire and the Fort Mac fire has to do with the speed at which it happened, right? In both of these fires, we had the fire moving through the town quite quickly.
The Camp Fire in Butte County continues to be a major fire, has burned into communities.
Oh my God.
Anastasia Skinner is 8 months pregnant and trapped in gridlock trying to escape. Just a few miles away, her mother is with the rest of Anastasia's family, safe from the fire for now.
My mom called back and I was like, I have your dogs. And I'm like, but I'm not making it out. Get the boys out of here and tell all the kids that I love them. And then my mom, you could hear her sobbing. Then a police officer came literally within 2 minutes and started banging on cars and getting them turned around. I passed my mom's house literally 10 minutes later. It was on fire already and I had just been there. I was still on the phone with her and I'm like, your house is gone.
Paradise is gone.
Just a few miles from Anastasia, downtown Paradise is unrecognizable to Mickey Huber.
It's 1:30 in the afternoon. This is the heart of the town of Paradise. This is what it looks like right now. My initial thing was to evacuate the hospital. That was the initial goal. The next goal was to evacuate people and get them out of harm's way. Paradise is not real good at its topography for getting out of the city. There's really only 3 roads that leave out. All of those roads became completely packed with cars.
And the logjam is about to get worse.
County Sheriff's Office, mandatory evacuation order, leave your homes.
I want you to go ahead and evacuate.
Within 2 hours, the Emergency Dispatch Center receives over 2,000 calls, including one from Anastasia.
Yeah, I was still on the phone with my mom and my husband and started having cramps. I got off the phone with them, called 911.
Fire rescue, what is the address of the emergency? Hello?
I'm in labor.
You need to evacuate immediately.
The 911 operator, she's all like, lay on the horn.
Anastasia blasts her horn in an effort to get the attention of anyone around her.
We have this image in our mind that when a forest fire comes through, it's the flames that are burning the house, right? That you get this wall of fire through, and that's what's causing the property losses. But it's actually often not the fire itself. It's embers that come through that ignite homes. And so this can be pretty dangerous, obviously, because it means that the fire is not advancing like a single wall, but that it's sort of jumping and leaping ahead. And we saw this behavior in both Fort McMurray and in Paradise.
In Alberta, as the fire moves into Fort McMurray, Paul Spring has a bird's eye view of the wildfire's mutant behavior.
When you get a town like Fort McMurray in front of a fire like that, it's just going to do what it wants to do. All these burning particles are coming out of the atmosphere from trees that have basically been, burnt and taken up into the atmosphere. Their branches, cones, everything are gone up in the column. There's a lot of energy being released there. When they fall back down 3 miles away, they start more fires.
When fires are actually gaining intensity, what they're doing is they burn off trees and they catch chunks of debris and they'll eject them out the top. Most of the time we're talking about like loose bark or maybe branches. And if those pieces are still burning when they hit the ground, they'll start new fires ahead of spot fires. In the case of extreme fire behavior, some of these can travel kilometers. So don't convince yourself that a road's ever going to stop a fire, or even a parking lot, or even a lake. They will jump them.
When the fire hit downtown, it's a very dynamic situation. And there's smoke in the air. I'm getting reports Fort McMurray is actually burning, houses are burning.
Fort McMurray's outskirts are secluded and peaceful. But when a wildfire roars through, they become death traps.
It looked like big billowing clouds of smoke. And there was helicopters carrying water bombers, like, over top of us.
Ashley Secord lives in a neighborhood connected to the rest of Fort McMurray by just a single road.
And you just think that the fire department is going to take care of it. I really didn't think that it was a big deal until it was too late.
Talk to any firefighter. Once fire gets into the grounds and is moving along, it simply is not safe to put firefighters ahead of that fire.
At Paul Springs Base, they receive a desperate call from Ashley's husband.
My wife came to me with a cell phone and said, here, there's some guy on the phone says he needs to be rescued. And we called, like we do, called the control tower to get permission to lift off. We're inside a control zone.
Air traffic control denies Paul's request to take off. Too many water bombers are in the sky, but Paul has made his decision.
So I said, okay, well, we're taking off. We could stay low level. We only have to pick up 100 feet to get over the trees, and we can go down into the river valley and stay out of everybody's way. These folks have adults and kids at a house and said they had no way out. They were feeling completely trapped.
In Paradise, 4 hours after starting, the fire has consumed 20,000 acres and is growing fast. The trifecta of heat, wind, and dry land has created the conditions for an inferno of apocalyptic speed and power.
This does look like a war zone. It's one thing to see 5, 10 houses this way. It's one thing to see a subdivision this way, but to see a whole town.
In Paradise, we saw another very quick evacuation where people had to make decisions, life and death decisions, in the matter of seconds, minutes, and hours.
A few miles away from Mickey, Anastasia Skinner has been trapped for 2 hours in a traffic jam, trying to escape the city.
It was horrible, and you could just hear propane tanks exploding. And it sounded like you're under fire. It was literally the worst sound in the world. And then I started having such a bad contraction.
Anastasia pleads for help from anyone who can hear her.
This police officer that was directing traffic got me in the parking lot and threw my car seats out of the car.
Oh, you gotta get her up, you gotta get her up.
They're like, you're gonna have a beautiful baby out of this, everything's gonna be great. And I'm just like in my mind, I'm like, no, that's not how that works.
Anastasia's pregnancy is high risk. An inherited disorder makes it impossible for her to give birth without a C-section.
I've always known that I can't go into labor, that the baby has to come out C-section. And I knew what my risks were. I would end up bleeding inside of me and she'd drown in blood and I'd die from bleeding out. Like, that's it.
The fire is advancing so fast that half the town of Paradise has been consumed within mere hours. Mickey hears about a pregnant woman in distress and immediately turns around and heads in her direction. But 2 miles of gridlocked vehicles block his route.
When I heard on the sheriff's department radio that there was a woman in labor at a gas station. It was probably no more than 10 minutes prior. I had just told all of the ambulances to get out of the city. And all the training and planning that we had done just went completely by the wayside because this fire, it engulfed the whole city at once.
The campfire has told us very clearly is that fires are going to burn unlike we have seen before. You will have, in some cases, minutes to notice residents about the potential for a fire spreading and the need for evacuations.
So the challenges you face include how do you communicate with people quickly enough? How do you evacuate people quickly enough? And how do you ensure that your responders can go the opposite direction during this evacuation and get to where they're needed in a coordinated manner that keeps them safe?
Police have now called for medical help for Anastasia.
So first one crew, it was a medical team. I heard them call 3 times for a helicopter and say if she doesn't get out, she's not gonna make it kind of thing.
Helicopters cannot land in wildfire conditions. The lives of Anastasia and her baby are in Mickey's hands.
Yeah, the visibility was 0 and this road was 5 lanes across and it probably had 7 lanes wide of traffic trying to get out of the area. So as we were driving, we were on the eastern side of the road on the sidewalk. The distance is roughly 2 miles, and it took me almost 27 minutes to get that distance because of the amount of abandoned vehicles, the smoke, the crowd that was panicked. I drove into the parking lot, and I found her parked, backed into a stall right next to the wall up here.
A year before the campfire engulfs Paradise, a staggering 250 fires tear across Northern California's wine country. These fires completely surround Napa Valley, where Claudia Sonder has her ranch and veterinary practice.
So I started getting little tidbits of information. North side's on fire, east side's on fire, and then I heard from one of my Napa Community Animal Response Team leaders, the west side's on fire. As far as I could see, the entire horizon was on fire. It didn't make sense. I've never experienced anything like that.
In the area, there are hundreds of animals that need evacuation.
I received a call from the Napa County Dispatch asking me to get trailers staged at a local grocery store for escort out into the hills. I called one of the members of the Napa Community Animal Response Team, and I said, I'm gonna start at the top of our evac list, you start at the bottom, let's call everybody and let's get going.
With no rain in the forecast, the fires keep growing.
Gentle flood. Okay, you got that?
As Claudia begins her rescue efforts, these massive fires create unfathomable situations.
And I've seen crazy things, like in the Valley Fire, I found birds dead in a field, numerous, jays, hawks, owls, and they weren't burnt. They were dead. And so I believe that they ran out of oxygen in the air. I think they fell from the sky. And when you talk to fire experts about a fire tornado and the fire creating its own weather and consuming its own oxygen, I could see how that could happen.
Fires can create their own weather. Part of this has to do with how heat rises, right? And so that movement produces wind. If you get heat rising enough, you can see a fire produce thunder and lightning activity, so where a thunderstorm would be accompanied by a bunch of rain, lightning caused by the fire, it's often dry, which contributes to further ignition.
In Fort McMurray, Canada, Paul Spring is searching for a family trapped by the raging wildfire.
I'm flying up Highway 63, going right back to the fire, and there's this great big column of smoke. This fire had a smoke column going up, maybe to 40,000 feet. It was creating its own weather because all the lightning coming out of that column of smoke was starting new fires ahead of the existing fire. I think at one point we had about 9 fires on the go.
When you start shoving that smoke so hard up into the atmosphere, it's like a super-powered cumulus cloud, and it's just going up so high, it will generate its own thunderstorms. We call them pyro-CVs, pyrocumulus clouds. So you think about fire as a phenomenon, typically they're caused by lightning, right? So if it's caused by lightning, and then it's generating even more powerful lightning, it can be generating new fires. So it's self-propagating, it's almost procreating through lightning.
The fire in Fort McMurray is growing more ferocious. Ashley and her family are still stranded with no way out.
There's only one road out of here, and there's smoke and fire you can't get through, you can't see, and you have no way to know how to get out of here. So I was really panicked, and I didn't know what we were gonna do.
Paul Spring finally arrives.
So Touchdown's driveway, we check for wires because there's power wires everywhere, and there's vehicles and people and dogs and cats. And hot loaded everybody. Hot load is where we don't shut the engine down. So blades are still spinning at full RPM, and we get people in.
I was really in shock when I seen how much was on fire and how serious it was. You could see it from the sky, like it was incredible. It looked like an atomic bomb has gone off. That's what it looked like.
Extreme fire activity is now occurring in places that in the past have been immune to wild, uncontrollable infernos. The summer of 2019, an unprecedented number of wildfires rage across the Arctic Circle. Record-breaking temperatures and high winds fuel hundreds of fires across Alaska, Russia, and Canada.
The real concern that we have now is the frequency, intensity, and extent at which these fires are occurring on these ecosystems that we haven't seen within the past 5,000 years.
This high-latitude region is known as the Boreal zone and makes up 30% of the world's forested area. Like all forests, the Boreal is essential for capturing carbon dioxide and converting it to the oxygen we breathe.
In the Canadian forest, the majority of our forest is boreal forest. So that's conifers, right? And it's softwood. And softwood burns differently than other kinds of forests. And so boreal fires tend to be large, they move quickly, and they move quite intensely.
In the Amazon, 2019 marks the highest fire activity in less than a decade. The Earth's lungs are choking on smoke from fires burning more than 2 million acres.
And we have been noticing, especially here, that the dry season is becoming longer and longer. When I talk to people that used to live here when they were a child, when they grew up here, they tell me that before it wasn't as dry as it is right now. That is why it's pretty easy to start a fire, and this fire just becomes uncontrolled.
In Paradise, California, what started as a small bushfire on the outskirts of the county has now swallowed the town in a fiery inferno in less than 12 hours. Mickey Huber rushes to help Anastasia Skinner, who has gone into life-threatening labor.
My initial goal was to shelter in place and deliver the baby. But once I got talking to her and found out her medical history precluded that she couldn't have a natural childbirth and that she had a bleeding disorder, the decision was made just to get her out of the area as quickly as possible.
Sheriff 1, Sanford, we're doing a carry out. Ready? Hold on.
So he started just yelling at people and pointing at them and was all like, this is how it's gonna happen.
2-8, can you get out?
We had a convoy of deputy sheriff, her car, my car. Her mom's dogs were in the front seat, and I crawled in the back with her with my medical gear, and we took off down the road.
Like, that's the first time I felt hope. Like, I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. Like, I can see that maybe I'm gonna be okay.
2-8, can you get out?
Anastasia's rescue convoy inches through the inferno.
Fire was on both sides of the road. The deputy had to create a path for us to follow. Sometimes that meant driving on the side of the road. Sometimes it meant forcing people on the side of the road. She was actively in labor. Contractions were probably 2 minutes apart. This was what I thought would be the safe area of town. And when we got down here, this whole area was on fire as well.
Ambulance was there waiting for me. There's fire all around it.
Sheriff 1 Sanford, we need to make a priority evacuation now.
The paramedic I turned her over to is one of my best paramedics, so I knew she was in good hands from that point forward.
Mickey Huber returns to the front line of the mega fire.
We continue to stay up here and do evacuations until about 7 o'clock the next night. You just go from one priority mission to the next priority mission. So this was just one continuous long 36-hour shift.
Climate change has massive potential to change fire regimes. By fire regimes, we mean the kinds of fire that exist in a place. With a changing climate, we see higher winds, higher temperatures, more dryness, and this drives different fire behavior.
In Fort McMurray, Canada, Paul Spring has safely evacuated Ashley Secord and her family. Returning to fight the fire, Paul sees firsthand the power of the mutant blaze.
Probably 95% of the fires we fight, we do at the initial attack level where the fire is extinguished within the first several hours. But when the big ones get away, you just know it, you're not going to stop them.
Paul's team is on high alert as the fire that has devastated Fort McMurray approaches his helicopter hangar.
Well, the fire came along the valley, so the winds were out of the northwest, which is angling through this property. So we decided, okay, we better step another, 10 miles away. So we took the helicopters and our trucks and fuel trailers and the whole traveling road show, and we landed down at industrial area south of town. And then we realized that there might be more people and could use a hand. So we went back, probably made a half a dozen trips picking up people.
In Napa, California, the fire is spreading much like Fort McMurray's mutant inferno. Veterinarian Claudia Sonder is racing the flames.
So we had hundreds of calls to go into the hills, check the animals, get them food and water. If it was safe, we left them in place. If they were injured or if it was not safe, we pulled them out.
Over the next 72 hours, Claudia's team rescues hundreds of animals.
And this went on for several days. The shelter stayed open for 3 weeks.
In Paradise, California, Anastasia Skinner is delivered to a waiting ambulance in life-threatening labor.
Immediately in the ambulance, when they hooked me up to everything, all their monitors were going off like crazy. My heart rate was 156, and they were like, "You were so close to a stroke." Like, they put IVs in both my arms and were like, "You're gonna need blood when we get to the hospital."
Anastasia Skinner's husband, Daniel, has been able to rendezvous with the evacuation convoy. They head to a hospital in Chico, 15 miles away.
Currently following the ambulance with my wife in it.
I was so exhausted and so sick because your body's going through like trying to get through this and trying to be in labor, and I didn't have much left in me.
The fire is not far behind. It continues to race across the landscape, threatening everything in its path, including Anastasia.
They basically shot me up with every medication that they could to stop the labor. Around then is when the evacuations for Chico started, which is the town that I was in.
Minutes after being joined at the hospital by her husband, they are forced to evacuate again.
Started driving on the main freeway, and then we ended up in Nevada and watched as our town went up in flames because it was on the news and it was a big deal, and we just watched it and cried a little bit. And
there are now over 8,000 firefighters on the front lines, more than 600 law enforcement officers, and more people and resources arriving daily.
In Fort McMurray, 90,000 residents are successfully evacuated, the largest evacuation in Canadian history. But Paul Springs stays on to continue battling the blaze.
When we weren't fighting the fire somewhere else, we're coming back here for fuel, and when we came back for fuel, we'd maybe do a couple of bucket loads into our own forest to keep it at bay. So the fight didn't end in one day. It kept going for quite some time.
A lot of the time when we're suppressing a fire, like when we're fighting one, we're kind of buying time until the weather comes and helps us out. We have to wait until that when the rain starts to return, and that does a major piece of the job.
Mother Nature comes to the rescue in Napa, California.
What saved us in Napa is that the wind died down. The worst case scenario didn't happen for us. It still catches me. 3 years later, I come home to that, and it brings me back to what happened to us all. Not in my lifetime will those mountains ever look the same.
The fires that burned Paradise, Fort McMurray, and Claudia's Ranch thrived on unusually hot and arid landscapes. It's a bitter irony that only a change in the weather extinguished those fires.
You know, one of the worst things that I had to do after this whole thing was drive my employees up here to see if their house was still standing, and being with them when they found out that their house had burnt down with everything they had. We were lucky that only 85 people were killed, and probably less than 200 were seriously injured. Life will always go on. You can already see it now, the amount of cleanup that they've already done, the rebuilding. Earlier this week, they actually had the first home rebuilt, and the family's moving back in that was displaced. The gas station where I picked up Anastasia is back open and functioning. So about 15,000 houses burned out, and they're projecting that they're gonna build 500 a year. So at that rate, it should be about 30 years before they get everything back up to the way it was the day of the fire.
Anastasia's pregnancy stabilizes, and she gives birth to a healthy baby girl.
So there's the Mickey guy. There's the Mickey guy. Say hi. Go to Mickey.
We named her after him. Her name's Zoelle Mickey Skinner. When he came to the hospital, I gave him a frame with a picture of Zoe in it. And on the frame, it says her name, and on the bottom, it says, when I tell a story about a hero, I'll start with the story of my name.
First of all, there's two things from that day that were great. One, that not one of my crews got hurt, which is pretty amazing. And then to find out later, you know, and to go to the hospital and to get the picture that you guys gave me, that was pretty awesome. Are you gonna smile today at all? Are you gonna smile? Are you gonna smile? Are you gonna smile? Are you gonna smile?
It's insane that it turned out looking like this. Zoelle's room was right there. So, I don't know. That's the hardest part, was that she never had a moment in that room. It was crazy.
This was my ambulance quarters. So, yeah, I had one crew here, and this is what's left of their station. We lost 2 out of the 3 stations we had up here. Thankfully, we didn't have any backup equipment in here. We drove around with our lights on for a good 2 weeks straight because the smoke was so dense and so I took time off from this job to go work my less stressful job of being a deputy sheriff, and ended up doing area searches for bodies and also security for all the people that had been forced out of their homes. And a couple of the places that we searched, we ended up finding some bone fragments that we turned over to the anthropologist. We did find one decedent that was unable to escape the fire.
The mutant infernos in Paradise and Napa, California, as well as Fort McMurray, Canada, are a dire warning. Climate change is altering our weather, making it dangerously unpredictable.
The destruction was total. Everything was gone. It was just black and gray ash everywhere.
In my short time here, I have seen what I think is an escalation of these firestorms. You know, an event that you think you might see once in your life, well, now I've seen 3. So it is worrisome.
We don't want to do this again. We're gonna see another firestorm like this. It's just a matter of when, not a matter of if.
We will expect fires to increase in their frequency, intensity, and their extent. So that means we're gonna see more fires, they're gonna burn more broadly on the landscape, and when they burn, they're gonna burn deeper.
California has lost at least 600,000 acres to wildfires every year since 2012. By 2018, that number was approaching 2 million. In the future, California could routinely suffer through fires, each many hundreds of thousands of acres in size, leaving millions upon millions of acres charred and decimated every year. Even the Arctic Circle is on a collision course with destructive infernos. 50 years ago, fire activity in the Arctic was low. Now, the region is heating up faster than the rest of the planet.
What happens in the north doesn't stay in the north in a number of different contexts. Those changes that are occurring in these high latitude regions that perhaps not everybody gets to see on a day-to-day basis do have global ramifications.
In 2019, the northern heat surge hit a record high, causing an unprecedented number of wildfires to run rampant through Alaska, Canada, Greenland, and Siberia.
So when you have a fire on the landscape and it burns through or consumes carbon stocks on the landscape, those are getting released up into our atmosphere, and that is potentially intensifying ongoing climate change by contributing more greenhouse gases to our atmosphere environment.
Scientists predict fires could quadruple in size and number by the end of the century. The forecast is equally ominous for Europe, Africa, and the Amazon.
The weather has definitely changed. The fire seasons are longer. There's going to be decades of consequences for what's been happening.
I think there's no question that they're going to need new ways to measure these disasters that are already upon us. I mean, we look at the wildfires in California and these fire tornadoes, you know, these things that are happening that, you know, you've got seasoned firefighters that are like, well, we've never seen this before.
Last 2 fires that I have seen firsthand have had descriptions of significant tornado action. That's not something I've ever heard of before. You know, when I listen to fire professionals describe these firestorms, they will say, this is the new fire, and we can't defend you from this.
If firenadoes and pyro-CB clouds are the destructive new reality of today, can humans survive a future of mutant weather?
We know fire is changing. We know that 10 years from now, our present tactics are going to be strapped to their limit. And that's kind of a national and international global problem.
So if we think things are tough now, they're going to get a lot tougher very rapidly. It's going to be very, very difficult to adapt to these extreme conditions. If the question is, technically speaking, could it be done? The answer is probably yes. Will we have the inclination to act? The answer is probably no.
Wildfires are raging around the globe more than ever before. A warming climate is continually changing fire behavior, causing terrifying mutations. If these are the mutations of today, what's in store for tomorrow? Will we have the power to stop it?